Call the meeting to order. First, we need to amend the agenda. Entertain a motion for that.
I'll make that motion to amend the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Barth.
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Ridgway.
Yes.
Juan.
Yes.
Beverly and Klepper absent.
Okay. We'll have the prayer and then the pledge. Heavenly Father, we just come to you. Lots going on in our country and our communities, and people are panicking, and I just pray your sense of calm on everybody. Pray for the leaders of our federal government, state, county, and even here around this room. Give everybody wisdom. Again, I just pray for your protection on everybody, our citizens, and I just pray that this virus will go away without too much sickness and all these things. I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everybody today for coming. Okay. We've had the roll call. Oh, yeah, okay. Roll call.
Juan.
Here.
Ridgway.
Yes.
Barth.
Here.
Bassett.
Here.
Beverly and Klepper are absent.
Okay, approval of the March 2nd regular council minutes. You have there in your packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Ridgway.
Yes.
Juan.
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Barth.
Abstain.
Okay, approval of bills.
Here's somebody coming.
Somebody walking past.
Taylor.
Okay.
Last one here brings treats.
Disinfectant addition.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Courtesy of him.
I don't know, I'm sure we're on.
Okay, we're on the bills, approval of bills. If you had a chance to look at it.
Yes, I did.
I already asked my question to Cheryl earlier about all the $100 and $200, and she already explained that was.
Yeah, I had the same question this morning.
Those are deposits, I'm assuming?
Yeah, for water bill, people have paid their water bill, we say 2 years consecutive.
Time.
Yeah,
Yep,
they get
okay.
reimbursed.
Any questions on the bills? I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Barth.
Abstain.
Juan.
Yes.
Klepper.
Yes.
Ridgway.
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Boards and commission, in your packet, you have the nuisance board minutes. Any questions on that? Very active board. We meet every month. You can see there's a lot of houses being addressed, so. Any questions at all? Okay. Council committee reports, police and fire EMS meeting March the 9th. Somebody want to report on that?
Yes, we met, Police Chief Kramer and John Elwood found a 2019 EMS, and it was 202 without the load system, and Scott believes they can get a grant to pay for half of this. Is that correct, Scott?
I did follow up on that, and we were unable to get the grant for 2 more years.
For 2 more years? And then Cheryl was going to go to the bank, and I don't know if she had a chance to check for loan rates.
I did. I sent them to Scott and
I got it. Yeah.
So I guess we're just waiting for that. And did you want to talk about the life pack when you go and talk to your...
Yeah.
Okay. And pretty much in their EMS is having trouble staffing on weekends. Chief Kramer and John Elwood's thinking of different options to solve the problem. They'll get with us later on that.
Any questions for Larry?
Was there any money in the budget for the replacement Unit 510?
There's a little bit saved up, and thinking if we go with loan and payments will be okay. We're waiting to hear back from more banks yet.
Might be at least a 3-year loan, so what we're looking at.
Oh, yeah, longer.
That's what the longer I saw.
It'll be longer.
We're not, that one.
96 months would be our best option.
Okay, that was one of the options, so.
That's something we want the committee to maybe readdress once they get all the
Yes.
paperwork in and find out.
And we were waiting for them to get back together.
We'll get back together.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Water and Sewer Committee met March 4th.
Kind of a, not a quick meeting, but we met with 3 different firms personally, and they gave us their pitch on what would be the best fit for our Defiance Lift Station project. And after kind of grading them, talking with the committee and the staff, we chose choice one got the award for the Defiance Lift Station, so they're going to be working on the design and investigating what's best for that area. Kent had also, when I used it, the page 2 is kind of a breakdown on the projects and some of the time frames that they would be looking into getting started working on, completion date, estimated cost, of course, and maybe some of the funding options on those. Nothing set in stone yet in any of those, but something still moving forward with. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mike? Okay, Administrators report?
I had one. I didn't have the minutes because we just met on Saturday and packets were already in the mail anyway, so we met, Personnel Committee met, we had a paper put up for the street, water, sewer departments. If they wanted to come in and meet with us, they could sign up for a slot between 9:30 and 11:30. We had 2 individuals sign up, and we talked to them about things they like going around the village, things they'd like to see changed, and it was pretty productive. Not a lot of attendance, but we did, we meet with them and listen to them, and we plan on doing this again next time with police, fire, and EMS, and we're looking as long as, see what this coronavirus and everything else does, what we're allowed to do. But April 22nd, it would be a Wednesday night, or Wednesday evening from 5:30 to 7:30, so let's see. We are planning, trying to meet that Wednesday.
What was the date again?
April 22nd, the 4th Wednesday of April.
Okay.
I'll get a sign-up sheet around for that.
Time you said it was there.
5:30 to 7:30.
That's great, that personnel meets with employees, that's a good thing. Administrators report?
Just a lot of travel got shut down, so we were doing some training. I don't know if all this is going to affect any of this funding stuff or not either, because it's going to depend on what shakes out. And then from last meeting, I did have Mike go around. He checked the streets that currently most people don't park on, if you want to call it that, to get everything posted to where those would stay, no parking. You're going to need at least 203 signs and 203 posts. Wow. Well, that's so that nobody can say, well, my little stretch of block doesn't have a sign. Like you're saying, it's figure around $8,500 at least.
What was his basis on that? Just the current protocol, or was he actually?
I joined to go down every street. Now, I guess like he didn't go down ours because it's always been one side. And some streets do have signs, but just like with, call it South Bryan Street, every one of those blocks, and there's 4 sections, 5 sections. Each of those sections is going to need 2, one on each side. So by the time you get done with all that, it's around 203 to... You didn't think about that one. I don't think I got money in the budget this year to just post a whole bunch of no parking signs, and you got long-term maintenance. The downtown signs, we still don't have the cans ordered yet, so that's not a big rush. Evidently, somebody ordered new ones while I was off because the 3-hour ones are all in real good shape except for one faded one, so won't need any of those. The 2:30 to 5:30s, those are all faded, so in my next sign order I'll replace those, so that won't be real expensive. And otherwise, a lot of things are just kind of on hold until I know who's working, not working. I mean, state-wise, county-wise.
Any other questions for Kent? Thanks,
As far
Kent.
as the PTI, so on the project recap on the sewer list,
The water tower.
with the well field, do we have the PTI for the well field?
You won't need an actual PTI for that. Once they would get the layout, and at this point, I've not heard back anything on that initial survey. Once they would get everything surveyed, see where they can actually then design the layout, once that's on paper, they'd send that to the EPA just to get a project review. Okay, it's not really a PTI. And the well field itself doesn't get a PTI, they've already approved the site, so it's sort of an,
I guess that the impetus of the question was and there we had talked about the grant, applying for the CDBG grant, I believe is what was listed here, for the well field, and I wondered if, are we on track to be able to hit that fall deadline?
I don't know.
Application?
If they can't get survey stuff around, that one's, I'm still 50-50 on it. I'm hoping we can make a fall one, but based on his last email, CSX is a ways out. He thought it'd be 2-3 months or more till they'd even have close to a design. So you're talking, call it March, April, May, June, July, you know. So I don't know. And then it depends on how that survey came out, if it'll go 45 or if it's got to go 90. If it's got to go 90, then we're back to land issues, and so it's still an unknown as far as I'm concerned until I hear back from that initial survey.
Any other questions for Kent? Okay. Solicitors report. Troy?
First thing I have is ordinance 2020-04, first reading by caption only, an ordinance to amend the annual appropriations ordinance, and I believe Cheryl needs this as an emergency. Is that right?
Yes.
That's $6,500. What's that represent? I guess.
The deposits that are refunded,
Okay,
that are on the bills list.
got it.
Is that a, I guess, did we not, I'm just more curious in the process what the protocol is. Is that something
Yes.
that we didn't see coming? Or something we didn't plan for in the budget, or what?
I did not plan for it because I didn't see it coming, and then Dawn had it all done, and so then I had to.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I'll entertain a
Motion to suspend.
second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Juan, Klepper,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
The second, third readings of ordinance 2020-04 by caption only, an ordinance to amend the annual appropriations ordinance and declaring an emergency.
So move.
Second.
Roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Juan,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Klepper.
Yes.
And then resolution 2020-04, first reading by caption only, resolution of the Village of Hicksville, Ohio, authorizing the mayor to take the necessary steps to complete the purchase of real estate from Larry Haber, Barry Haber, and HHD Inc., and declaring an emergency. And this is what got added on in speaking to the title company. They just wanted further clarification. We had where the contract was authorized to be signed, which would have actually been by Diane back then, but that's just to allow them, we're going to close this. It sounds like Ron's going to be in defiance already on Thursday, and so that's when the intention on getting that closed and wrapped up would be. This will just authorize him to sign like the closing statements and things of that nature and get that taken care of.
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
A second.
Second.
Roll call.
Klepper,
Yes.
Juan,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Second, third readings by caption only, resolution 2020-04, resolution of the Village of Hicksville, Ohio, authorizing the mayor to take the necessary steps to complete the purchase of the real estate from Barry Haver, and HIX-TV, Inc., and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Juan,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Klepper,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes?
Bassett.
Yes.
And the only update I have on the Haynes thing is I did talk to him after our last meeting, told him I wanted that done by March. I did not because I was in coronavirus meetings this afternoon. I intended to call him so that I would have an update on where that was, but I will call him tomorrow.
Okay, any
Other than that, I
questions
think
for
that's all I
the
have.
solicitor?
What are you waiting on as far as that?
We had an agreement that basically he's paying off, he had lands for jobs that required him to have certain job numbers and things of that nature that he didn't meet. And so we basically called him out on it and said, hey, and he's really been, not confrontational about it all. He doesn't want anybody to think he's tried to take the village's land and do it. It really was an economic thing with him. He had an issue with being able to get enough truck drivers to meet the requirements initially, and then what happened is when the ownership changed out at FWT and whatever the new company is that took over, he was really tight with the original owner of FWT. That's why he came up here at the same time and handled all that. So when that transition took place, he didn't even have as much of the work as he had then. And so what we did is went to him and said, hey, the way the program structured is you get the land for free, but we do it in terms of each, like what the value of the land is, and then we forgive a certain 20% a year for 5 years if you meet those job requirements. And we kind of negotiated it. I mean, there was a period where he was close in the beginning, and so we went back and we came up with a number basically that said, hey, if you pay this amount, we'll release all the documents. The land will be yours. You're free to do with it, sell it, keep it, do whatever. And so what I had to do was some paperwork that basically acknowledged that we were settling that we were terminating it in exchange for his payment, terminating any obligations that he had under the contract and releasing him. And it does nothing to do with his revolving loan. He still has a revolving loan with the village that he's current on, correct? So, and he said that from the very beginning. He goes, look, I learned a long time ago in business, you don't burn any bridges, and who knows, something might change, and 5 years from now I may have some big project up there by the village, and I don't want people going, oh, there's the guy that came in and took us for whatever. He goes, that's not my intention at all, and it's been a matter of just getting it wrapped up. So I'm going to call him tomorrow. He needs to sign and send his check.
Okay.
That's the short
so
answer.
the update is we're waiting on payment
Yeah.
to resolve.
He needs to sign his version of it, send the check and get it to us, and then we'll get it signed and cash a check, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Troy? Okay, department heads, police chief, Denny.
I don't really have anything, just planning on the precautionary measures for the coronavirus.
Fire chief, Kramer.
I don't really have a lot, just a short update. Larry had mentioned the AED for the squad, the new Life Pack 15. We did budget it. I'm kind of waiting right now to see how things are going. We will be buying it this year at some point, though. As far as the squad, we're about $8,000 less than what we would be able to build one for. And be a 6-month lead time. This one is already built and off the line, ready to go. So that's why we kind of thought we'd jump on it. I hope once the numbers come back in, we get it all figured out. I have the support to get it because we need it. That's really all I have unless you have questions for me.
Sent you an email about first responders,
State purchasing.
about a list of our first responders, and if you can give me a list of
We have,
a list of all the runs they went on, how many runs that
Okay.
each one of them went on.
Okay.
I sent you an email
okay,
a few days ago.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I haven't been on over there, so.
Okay.
All right.
Talked about $8,000 more for another brawn, right?
Yeah.
Chief
It's
XL?
Chief XL. It's the only real difference is it's a year newer.
Right.
This one doesn't have everything we wanted, but it's close enough. It has some things we didn't want, but it's built and it's ready to go.
Why is it for sale? If it's only a year old and fit out?
brand new.
It's brand new.
Oh, okay.
It's just 2019
Last year's
model.
model.
It's
2019.
It is a new, okay.
The department that bought it ordered it at the end when they went to do final inspection. Something got missed, and because of that, they didn't want it. And I'm not sure what it was. That's not a major issue that was missed. Just what their department wanted, and it didn't meet their specs. So they backed out of it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, Park Director, I don't think anybody's here from the park. Need council approval, and I'm going to recommend some hiring of lifeguards. Ella Clark, Josh Myers, and Rena Mazur. I'm going to recommend that we hire them as lifeguards. I need the council's
I make a motion to accept Mayor's
Second.
recommendation.
Second.
roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Juan,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Klepper.
Yes.
And then the park board voted hiring of another employee, Carson Shaw, pending physical and drug screening. This is a college student. Gets out in early May. So I'll recommend that we hire Carson Shaw.
Is there budget in there for another employee?
Yeah, we've had somebody, yeah, they've always had somebody every year, like
Usually hire
Armand's
summer help.
last couple of years.
Met like two, usually they're
Yeah.
students or
College
just over
kids are hired
jobs.
during
kind
the
of
summer.
stuff.
They do a lot of weed eating.
Might be available early.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely, but
That won't be in the budget.
Yeah, right.
I'll motion for the mayor's recommendation for Carson Shaw.
Second.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Juan,
Yes.
Klepper,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Okay. Ready for Cheryl's fiscal officer's report, Cheryl?
I have a whole bunch of paper. First thing is your fund status, and it does have the real estate tax in the general fund for the first half, and it is less than last year, $199,000. Last year it was $232,000. The local government officials conference that the mayor and administrator always goes to is canceled or delayed. The new council seminars are postponed. The health fair, as far as I know, is still on in April. And I'm just letting you know about that because this is, the one in the spring is the one that council usually approves us to have the employees get, and we pay for it.
Do we need to make a motion to approve that?
When is it? April 13th.
The meeting April 6th.
We'll have
Yeah,
another meeting.
we have another meeting.
Okay.
The February Mayor's Court. Fines and fees are listed. MediaCom is removing some more channels and putting on some different ones. I put in the Federal Reserve press release I got. It was from over the weekend. It's mostly for the Finance Committee, because we have to have a meeting very soon. There's one for workers' comp from the Governor DeWine, his latest press release. And there is a notice of our opportunity to make objections to the renewal of a liquor permit. Every liquor permit in Hicksville expires on June 1st, 2020. So if there is any permit holder that you have an objection to, you have to let them know before then. And all the information's in the letter. And finally, I got this from the chamber, and I haven't even read it myself because they just sent it to me right before the meeting, but I put it in everybody's packet. That has to do with us locally, where you can get some help. They're just getting started, but it's okay. If you have any questions, they have places where you can call. That's all I have except the meeting with Finance Committee.
Okay.
there anything we can do as a public entity to ensure support of our small businesses that are currently here? I saw that DeWine just recently closed basically any sort of public recreation gyms. So the Health Fit's obviously closing their gym, Willpower Fitness, all the restaurants are going to takeout only. Just throwing it out there, is there anything we can do to help support?
I would hope, since the president did a state of emergency, there might be money involved, but I don't know that for sure. Is that right, Troy, I'm guessing?
That was the whole point of
Yeah.
doing that federal, was to open up money for state and local governments, grant money and stuff, and then, I'm sure there's other things gonna be coming down, because from the state on down, as they've gone so far as the workers, or the unemployment comp, making people eligible for that immediately, and there's gonna be other things like that. Now, that doesn't help restore a stream of income that you miss out on by being closed or being reduced down to carry out only or anything, but,
So historically, I guess when that happens, is that up to the local government to dole out funds, or is it up to the small business to go through the
think a
process?
little of both.
We never had it, really.
Yeah, we never had
In the
it.
event of a state of emergency, that was the
Yeah.
question. We obviously had, well, maybe not the village of Hicksville under a state of emergency, but
Would it be through the commissioners, maybe through that route?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask. It may be state, I would think more through the state would be, and then the question was, what's the process? Do we help people out? I mean, that may be our role. I don't think the money would come directly to us at all to dole out, but we may be in the position to help people get in touch with whomever they need to apply for whatever benefits may be out there.
so is that something that you're tracking closely?
I wouldn't say closely, but I can keep an eye.
we're not giving it away.
I mean, it's that part of it hasn't really come out other than when we get like these things from the governor about what he's doing and things like that. I mean, that stuff I am paying attention to, and I guess when those issues come up,
I mean, I don't know,
Cheryl probably gets copied on stuff from the
Everybody's on that
clerks,
ahead of time.
like listserv and stuff. And that's what I get is mostly stuff from the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association when little things come
And that
up.
4 pages from the chamber too has
Yeah, chamber.
context.
So I certainly will, for lack of a better term, keep an eye on it. And if something comes up, I'll forward it on to Cheryl or to the
And
mayor.
everybody can still go to the restaurants and get your food.
Carry out.
Just like normal and make money for them.
Yeah.
I mean,
That helps them, yeah, the gyms and stuff like that, not really much you can.
Yeah, well, and obviously, everything's changing by the hour.
Right.
We meet approximately every 2 weeks, so a lot could change between now and the next meeting. So that's just one thing I wanted to make sure that we're all,
Yeah.
And I'll keep an eye out on it, because I get a lot of emails and forward it.
And if I get anything good, I always send it to you guys.
Yeah, she does.
And the stuff with our webpage, I mean, any.
Oh, yeah, it all goes on there,
information
too.
Needs to be put on our webpage as soon as possible, so, all that.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll just bring up, I've heard several rumblings about issues with the park, the Little League Ball Association bringing up sponsorships for the fields. I've not heard anything official, but I know there's several people in the community that have actually reached out to me personally, just to, whether they're in support of or against sponsorships or those things. And I think we got into this a little bit when we were talking about the drug screening and everything, and basically what is the village's responsibility versus what is the Little League Ball Association versus what is the park board's responsibility. And I guess that's sort of one thing I just wanted to open up for discussion. I obviously know it's not on here, but something I think it sounds like there's a lot of butting heads, and there has been frequently with the Little League Ball Association and park board or park director, and whose responsibility is what. I think that's something we really need to make sure that's clear. What is, whether it's the softball association or anybody that's utilizing the park, what is in their grounds for control versus what is park board versus what is council's final say or village administrator. So I guess I don't know if you guys have heard anything about any of that stuff going on.
I've heard of one. The one I've heard of is the naming of fields. And back when I was on the park board, we talked about anything from naming the football field after an individual to our varsity baseball field, which is park owned, to an individual that was a coach for a long time, to naming fields down in the park. And at that time when I was on the park board, it was always not naming any field after anyone. There's numbers. There's field 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on. And then I know there's the park board. Back when I was on it, they would like to be in the loop and be asked before something's done. And I think the Little League maybe went around and asked for donations to rename fields. And I'm not saying the park board, the current park board, I'm not sure because I'm not one of them. But if they would like to be asked ahead of time instead of just doing it. And I don't know if they all had the intent of ever naming a field. I mean, I know a lot of sponsors, including the Eagles, we sponsor teams, but that gets your name on their shirts. It's a logo. You're one of the team supporters. But, we donate thousands and thousands of dollars to all of them down there every year, and we've never had the intent of actually naming a field. And then the field would change from year to year to year to year, every year, and the field could be a different name. And I'm not saying, when I was on park board, we never wanted to have that happen. I'm not saying the current park board does, but to me, that would be the park board's yes or no to that. Not saying council, but it would be the park board's choice on that before it'd be the Little League Boys or Girls Association.
I guess, I'm sort of in a unique situation, obviously, because of the dealership choosing to, the opportunity was offered to sponsor a field. The way I was understood is it's basically just for Little League purposes, Little League scheduling. The fields would still be Field 3, Field 5, Field 7 for all intents and purposes, but it was basically just a sponsorship opportunity, no different than any team. So as far as hanging signs in the outfield, they used to hang signs in the outfield all the time as far as sponsors. I don't know if they still do that, but I guess if it's not a formal naming of the field as much as it is more of a sponsorship opportunity, to me that's no different than the naming of a team on a shirt. It's just a sponsorship opportunity and an opportunity to raise funds. So I guess if it's not a formal process, why is the village getting involved? Village being park board or any of those things, I guess, is my question.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It depends on what the intent of it is. If the intent is we're, for lack of a better term, selling the naming rights for a field.
That's what I was told.
It's going to be known from this point forward as Jim Schmidt Field or whatever.
Yeah.
That obviously would involve park board involvement, I would say, because the Little League Baseball Association doesn't own those fields. They don't have the right to name them or change the names. Now, if it's like what you're talking about, selling sponsorships, and I don't know if they do either, but I know even at the varsity baseball diamond, didn't they have out in the outfield some signs or whatever of many businesses that had supported, I assume, donated
They're all
money.
same dollar amount for every banner.
In order to get that out there. So if we're talking about, hey, we got one person that's, we're going to allow one company, individual, whatever, per field to be the major donor, and they'll get the bigger sign or the only sign, but it'll change every year. I guess that wouldn't necessarily be any different than having multiple signs and selling advertising, or asking people to sponsor teams and having the Eagles team or the, whoever, the Rotary team and whatnot. That wouldn't be different. But if it literally is the, quote, naming of the field, then I would say that would be definitely something that would require park board approval. There's definitely a blurring of the lines in there regarding responsibilities and everything, and I think the big thing to remember is those fields belong to the park, to the village and the park. And so when anything major on those done, that's why when there's been major projects or whatever, we've always asked that they don't just go out there and take their excavator out there and start digging things up, that they talk to the park board about what they're going to do. And I know there's been some butting of the heads on that stuff before. I think that's the designation you got to make is it naming of the field, or is it just one major sponsor per field per year, and then the next year, you guys got one this year that says, say this one says Jim Schmidt, next year Corey wants it to say Red Angel or whatever, so he's the one that, you know.
That was the other complaint when I was on there, is one of the, might have been Mike Headley said, well, you know, we were ever asking Napa to sponsor a field, and, you know, how do they get picked to do it? You know,
Sure.
nobody else does. And it wasn't like you give everyone in town a chance to put their name in the hat, and whoever got pulled and got
Right.
to name it, or, you know.
Whoever wanted, put your name in the hat.
Yeah. Not saying they're
Whoever
showing
was willing.
favoritism towards somebody, but.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
But
It
once,
could happen.
But
though.
once again, in that instance, it's not the village's decision as far as how the Little League Ball Association wants to go about acquiring sponsorship dollars, in my
That's true.
opinion.
As long as it's not naming a field.
Yeah,
Formal naming rights, yes. Versus
That's how I was told from Gary and Val, was that, did you know that they went around and sold rights to name the field and rename the field for a year? And I said, no, I didn't know that. And he said, yeah, 3 people
Well, that's
paid
not how it should have been.
$1,000
characterized.
each, and that got them.
I mean, you might have been able to say, hey, we will prominently display your logo and your name on a field, you know, for the year or whatever in order to do that, and there won't be anybody else on that field, but I wouldn't classify it as naming the field after you after your business for the year.
Corey, when's the park board meet again?
We will meet Wednesday.
This coming Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hope it will be saved for the next meeting.
So you can, you're our representative, you can
Yes, I think it's a wonderful idea, actually, with the signage. I mean.
just not name a field, you're saying, yeah.
Well, like, you know, with the naming of the fields, are technically not naming of the fields, it's a sponsorship of the
Okay,
field.
that's a better
I mean,
word,
it's
sponsorship.
I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, it's a lot of money that Ball Association is going to be bringing in. I mean, look
Okay.
what they've done in the last 2 years alone.
But the key is communicate
Sure,
with the park
absolutely. That's
board.
why I was.
And that
gonna
first
bring it up.
meeting I went to in January, you know, that was stressed that, hey, keep them in the loop.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? I think we got it kind of resolved. Okay. I need your approval on 3 residents for this design review committee. Get that going. And I had several individuals call me, which is good, volunteers. And the 3 members I'm going to recommend is Sheila Baker, former council lady, John Hart, a business owner uptown, and Charlie Wan is just a at-large retired person. So I'm going to recommend we put those 3 on if I can get the council's approval.
I've got another question on that. Is this board, right, is that classified as a board, downtown review, or a committee? Is this, what are their responsibilities?
They won't have, Troy, you can kind of, they won't have a lot of
Not
power.
much.
Are they
Just to
going,
prove that they're doing what they're supposed to do.
To
Well,
make
the
sure,
money we're, like they said, they're going to be spending it towards, without taking away from, the ones that were on that one was supposed to kind of keep it the way the business was from the beginning.
Depending on what type of funding you're
Yeah,
getting.
doing funding.
this is 100% federal funding. We have no money involved, the town.
we had talked about adopting design
Yeah,
standards
there's going to be a more generic, for lack of a better term, general, like design standards, that'll be one of the first things we'll have to do is come up with some rules and regulations, and the council can be in charge of that. As long as they incorporate that if there is federal funding involved, they have to include those, whatever those 5 or 6 things were, from the Department of Interior.
So the committee's not actually responsible for drafting standards,
No.
just enforcement of standards?
Now there's enforcement.
Making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do, once those regulations are in place.
So then are we going to put together a committee that is in charge of drafting those standards?
At least suggesting them to the council, what should be on there.
I guess that was my question, is because.
Yeah, these people aren't doing that.
The next step is the adopting standards.
Right, so we need to.
So who's
draft
adopting,
some
who's
standards.
who's responsible for drafting and gathering those standards, I guess?
On the federal side of it, it's already set up by the
Right.
federal government.
But that was the whole talk, was if we were going to have a board in place, shouldn't we develop some standards, maybe not as restrictive as the federal ones are, but just have those standards in place so that somebody's reviewing what's being done, even when there aren't federal funds involved in the downtown area of the village. And that's what he's talking about, is developing those standards, which would include, for lack of a better term, a paragraph that says in the event that federal funding is a portion of this job, these provisions have to also be considered as part of the review.
The Fulton Streetlight property?
Probably.
Okay.
That's something they can-
But I had to
Yeah, we had to
keep on the board.
So we had somebody.
To keep a process going, I didn't want to be the holdup, so
Right.
I'll entertain a motion for that. My recommendation.
Take your recommendation and turn it into a motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Juan,
Yes.
Epstein,
Yeah.
Same. Okay, sure.
Bassett,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Klepper.
Abstain.
Okay. Hopefully, everybody's got the census report in the mail. I think, fill that out. That's very important for funding for the village. Tomorrow is election day. I think it's going to be open, but anyway, 6:30 in the morning at the Empowered Church. 9228 Hicksville Edgerton Roads at the end of the industrial park.
Sounds like
it's all-
second.
June 2nd.
Did you change it?
Well,
I think they're waiting for it to be approved.
it hasn't gone through the court, so I wasn't going to say,
They were trying to sue to stop it.
but
Don't be surprised if somebody's out there.
that could change. So I hate to report that it's not on tomorrow. I haven't got the official word, so. And I know a lot of
5
people,
minutes ago, an Ohio court officially granted a request to delay the state's primary election until June 2nd.
okay, so the election isn't officially, right, Troy, you're saying?
Officially, it says, yeah.
It's on
So
Facebook, right?
by absentee ballot or, so the election will not be open tomorrow, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. I wasn't going to mention it unless it was,
June 2nd.
okay. You'll get more in the newspaper and the news. And I know a lot of people are confused about this coronavirus, and so very confused. Chief Denny and I listened to a webinar today for, 2-3 hours. And I'll say one thing, the county's on top of it, the state. And sometimes you think, but they're the experts. You know, I'm not an expert on people's lives, so I just, I'm going on their recommendation. So the 3 things I recommend to the citizens is, number 1, wash your hands. My hands are chapped and sore, so I hope everybody's are too. Check on your neighbors, especially the elderly, check on them. And then also, last but not least, is trust in God, and let's pray for this situation. So anything needs to come up before this council? Yeah.
I had a recommendation that I'd just like to ask about the annex and property.
You want to step up?
I had a recommendation I'd like to ask or talk about annexing property into the city limits. I want to annex 2 more properties here into the city limits. I want to annex in the property I own across from FWT. I want to annex in the house right across, I think it was Go to Gumps, maybe? Is that her
Right
name?
there on the curve.
Right there on the curve. That's a messed up property. The city went around it years ago. So I'd like to annex that in. And I talked to Troy maybe a week or 2 ago. I think maybe the last annexation in Hicksville, where I did the coffee shop, was the school back in 2006. And then when I did the coffee shop lot, no one really knew the process of how to do it. So I hired an attorney. It cost me probably around $3,000 to get that property annexed and give to the city, to give to you guys. Now I want to do 2 more. I want to do FWT and give you guys more ground. And I want to do Regoda Gumps area and give you guys more ground, more or less just to clean up property lines. And I mean, they're kind of messed up properties anyway. So the way I understand it is I called and talked to Troy, and the landowner has to initiate the process. And I called, and is there a way to make it easy to annex property in? And the reason I say this is, I'm going to use Ines Gifhorn, for example. If Ines Gifhorn would come one day to Hicksville and say, I'd like to annex my property and give you guys my property, are you going to tell her, get in the phone book, find an attorney, get $3,000 to $5,000, $6,000 out of your pocket, and then we'll take it? Because
She could give it to us, and then we could petition.
Gotcha.
Because once the village owns, then we would be the petitioners.
Well, let's just say she wants to annex it in. I think there needs to be a standard, easy, generic form that sits up here in this office that's wrote up. Why is that, Troy?
It's just, the process is through state law, and they have made it easier. When I first started practicing law, if you wanted to, either one of those properties, if you wanted to bring them in, the process was much longer and much more difficult, and maybe 15 years ago, they came up with these expedited, which is kind of what you did on the coffee shop, where you were the only property owner. You only had to have your own signatures because you had enough of the perimeter adjoining the village already, which is what these...
All these other ones will be the exact...
Yeah, right. That is the expedited, easy process, but the process is set by state law, and it's petitioned through the county commissioner's office that you want to annex it to, you're asking permission basically from them to annex it to the village, and because it's a statutory process, it has to be followed to a T, otherwise the annexation's not proper, and what happens then is that messes up your real estate records going forward when it comes time to have like title searches and things like that done, because when things are purely a circumstance of statute, you have to strictly follow the terms of the statute, and that statute is you have to petition the county commissioners. You do that step, then the village indicates what services that we'd be willing to provide to the property and that we're on board, and then assuming you meet all the requirements of the statute, what's made it easier now is it's just a rubber stamping basically by the county commissioners.
Right.
It used to be the township trustees would show up, and I did a couple of those. They would show up and say, hey, we don't want to lose that from our township. That's part of our land and everything. And then the commissioners kind of had it was up to them as to vote. Now it's, if you meet all of the requirements and you filed the petition correctly and you filed the proper documents and the village has done their resolution saying, yeah, we'll provide these services to it, then once the proper time has passed, they rubber stamp it and it's done. That's what expedited and made it easier.
Yeah, but it's just paperwork, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all paperwork,
Okay,
but it still has to be done.
Right, but I'm saying, I've already paid once for it. I talked to Michael Wall, I said, well, I'll just use your existing paperwork and just put the different parcel name in it, put your different location, put your different address. So I'm paying for it again. So when he does or go to Gumps, I'm going to pay for it again. So I've already paid for this paperwork. It's the same paperwork 3 times.
Well, and I
So if
can't...
you guys want it, can I give it to you? So if somebody else wants to annex in this property, we don't have to say, hey, go call your attorney, go spend $3,000, go spend whatever. I'll just give you the paperwork because it's all standard. All you're changing is the parcel number, you're changing the landowner, you're changing the address, and then you just need an affidavit and a power of attorney to sign it.
Are there ways?
That's not for the village to get, I mean, the village doesn't get involved in that stuff. I mean, if you want to do that, you got other properties, you've paid for it once, and again,
Well, I
I'm a
just
lawyer,
think
so
that-
I'm not going to tell you to circumvent that area because there are occasionally things that you need legal advice on. It's not just a fill in the blank rubber
Right.
stamp. But if you wanted to do that, you've already paid for that. You could take the paperwork, you could change it around, you could get the survey yourself, and there's nothing that says you have to have an attorney to file a petition with the...
Right, I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it easier, because I figure the way a town grows is get more ground and get more people paying into the kitty. That's one of the problems we got. We're trying to get more people, so the more ground you get, the easier you make it for the person to do it, the more willing they're going to be able to do it. My cousin Roger Delagrange, I hate to keep saying him, and this is Indiana, and I asked him about Cedar Creek, how he did it. How do you get it annexed in? He goes, I go down to the local government office, I fill out a piece of paper, and they take it from there. So I thought, well, can't we figure out something like that to make it easy just here in Hicksville? I know you told me on the phone that, well, you got to initiate it. Well, that was a phone call. I was calling to initiate it. Troy, I want to annex it.
You have to file the petition in your name. The signature on it has to be from the owner of the property that seeks to be annexed, or if there's more, because usually when this was originally done, they envisioned that it was going to be more than Justin Kuhn wanted to annex one property. They thought it was going to be 4 or 5 property owners in a row saying, hey, we all want to be brought into the village, and so you get all 4 of them to sign, and if it's husband and wife, you get the husband and the wife, but you got all the property owners, and then you bring them all in together. Now, as a practical matter, it's probably used more often like your situation where one property owner wants to come in, or like your situation on Spencerville where, because of the way things were done in the past, I'll give you a perfect example over in Defiance out on East 2nd Street. You could drive down out there by where like Taco Bell and Wendy's and all them are, and you get 2 properties are in, 2 properties across the street are out in the township.
Yeah,
and it's a pain in the neck for fire and rescue, law enforcement, all of that,
Right.
and so those owners have slowly started to get that, and the only involvement that anybody's had with that from a city standpoint is maybe putting people together, but the city didn't initiate anything, they didn't draft any petitions, they didn't, they may have helped put 2 people in contact with one another. You're talking about business owners, some of them that live out of state and things like that.
I know, not to keep talking about it, last year, I think it was Diane Collins called me and asked me if I wanted to annex in the FWT property, because you guys were trying to annex in 5-acre mill, and you needed my property and Ines gift horns, I think, along the way.
Probably.
And I said, I don't know, probably, but if she would have said, well, it's going to cost you $3,000 to $5,000, I said, no way. Why am I going to do it? But if there's a way to make it easy, I don't care. I'm paying the attorney bill, but I'm just saying other people aren't going to. If they hear that it costs money to give their ground to you guys, they're going to say, I'm going to give it.
Well, but they're not giving the ground to us. It ain't like we can do with it. We're getting tax dollars.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that's different.
I was just trying to figure out a way to make it easy.
And I talked to the mayor of Defiance, because you called me about it, and he gave the same, what Troy said, because I thought, okay, is there a short way to do it? So,
When we've had people, to be frank about it, obviously I work over there too, we've had people that wanted the city to somehow initiate, and the standard answers, but no, that's, we'll help facilitate if you need us to put you in touch with somebody as far as another property owner or whatever, but as far as, the application comes from the property owner, and then we'll do whatever we need to behind the scenes to pass our resolution in a timely manner and help keep everything on task, but the actual work on it is done by the individual property owners.
So what's actually required? What are the things that you need? A petition?
You got to file a petition, you got to have an annexation survey that shows basically the whole location of the property and identifies the perimeter of the property. And what's that?
A boundary survey?
Yeah, and it identifies how much of the perimeter of the property is contiguous to existing village land, not village owned, but village in the municipality, and a certain amount of it has to be, and it's a small amount, I think it's 5% of the property, has to be contiguous to already owned. So I think both of his property, I know the one on Spencerville would be, because this property beside it and across the road.
Yeah, all the way around it, I think so.
Yeah, so that one wouldn't be the issue. The other thing is there's things like you can't create a property that's an island. So if his property and the other property to it were the only 2 that were still in the municipality, he couldn't annex his without the other one because he'd be creating an island. But I think out there the issue is maybe there's farmland behind. That's out. I think that's probably true out at the FWT, because I think there's farmland in behind that's out in the township. So even if, I'm going to forget her name, Mrs. Gifhorn, even if her property's not going to be an island necessarily, because there's property behind her that's in the municipality. So I think you could do it with the fact that FWT's in the village.
Gotcha.
And so across the road counts as adjoining property, so you can count that as part of it. But there's like a handful of, you petition, you have to put the township trustees on notice. The clerk, Cheryl, gets a notice, and then the law specifies how that's all got to be done by certified mail, and you got to file an affidavit. And I think the adjoining property owners have to be notified, as I recall, across the street and on each side and in in behind would have to be notified. And it's just a statutory scheme, and you just got to follow it, A, B, C, D, E.
Do we have that posted anywhere on a village website or anything? Is there any
So it's
document?
just Ohio Revised Code.
How, like, on the Front Row Paver Drive, I know it's been brought up in the past about trying to annex that in. So if we wanted to annex in the Front Row Paver Drive, would every person have to go get an attorney?
You'd have to get
Majority.
What probably would happen is there's a certain percentage of the properties that would have to be in, and off the top of my head, I don't know that. But if you got that percentage, and that's usually why they encourage to add more people on, because from a legal standpoint, it's going to cost you the same to annex one property in as it's going to cost you 10.
Right.
Okay, it's one petition, it's just signed by all 10 landowners. Now, the survey might cost a little more because it's a bigger area or whatever, but the legal work, and so what often happens when they get those groups together, they say, hey, the 10 of us can go forward and annex this in, and we'll split up the cost, so instead of paying $3,000, we're all paying $300. Right. But yeah, they all would contribute.
But I don't want to come off, I'm not here to argue, or I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it easy, that if anyone else would want to do it, how could we make it easy for them? Because a lot of people aren't going to spend that money to annex their own ground in. And I think it's a benefit to the community to get it somehow. So I thought, I've got these forms, I just keep wouldn't for the same paperwork. Wouldn't there be a way to bring it up here and lay it in here? And if somebody wants to do it, hey, we've kind of got to...
The problem is that's like, you're basically giving them legal advice then, the village would be, by saying, hey, here's all the forms, and it's not a cookie cutter. I'm not going to lie to you, 8 times out of 10, it might be relatively a cookie cutter. Here's the legal description, here's the survey, switch out the names of the people that are the adjoining property owners and get them served or whatever. That probably is true a lot of the times, but every once in a while, there's going to be a situation where maybe there's an issue to do with somebody being on an island, or maybe you got to do it under, there's like 4 different sections, one of them that's used most of the time, but there's like 4 other ones, and maybe it'd be better off to use one of the other ones, and that's why the village would have a tough time saying, hey, we're keeping the forms up here, and we got them, Mr. Kuhn paid for them already, he had his lawyer do them, here, you guys use these, because then if something doesn't go right, then they're going to come back up to these, come see the mayor and say, hey, you told me all I had to do is use these forms, and now I got denied, or now I can't do it, what the heck?
All right,
that's why I can't.
I got the point. Okay, my next question is I've hired a architect to maybe start drawing up, he is actually, to draw up the ground behind Haver Drive that I think you guys are in the process of purchasing. And I think you're going to sell off maybe the 20 acres for development?
That's our plan, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I thought I heard that at one time, and it's just my own risk money that I'm doing, and I'm not saying that it's even going to sell. But if it would come for sale and go to an auction, there's just some things that I've talked to some of you guys about that are a big factor in developing that property. One is the lift station at the end of Clearview. Who's going to upgrade that to accept more sewage? Is that the developer going to pay to upgrade that, or is that the city going to pay to upgrade that? And then the next question is the gas. Who's going to pay for the upgrade for the gas?
It wouldn't be the city.
Okay.
It'd be between you, whoever buys it, and the gas company.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks. Hey, appreciate your enthusiasm about making the town grow. Appreciate it, Justin. Okay, anything else needs to come before this council?
I'm making a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Clipper.
Sorry?
I was trying to catch my breath to say something.
Oh, go ahead. No. I had to hit the gas. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about our meeting, the committee proposal that I brought up? Is that something you want to talk about, or is that something?
Economic development. Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. By the next meeting, I want to talk to you about it. So.
Okay.
What he's mentioned is, we used to have a committee for economic development. I think I was on that committee, it's probably been a couple of years ago. And it was brought, maybe bring it back again. So I'm still thinking about that. I got some ideas.
Sounds good.
I want to talk to you about it.
Great.
Maybe next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay. Roll call.
Clipper.
Did we make a motion and accept it?
To adjourn.
Larry and Eric,
Yes. Yes.
the usuals.
Juan,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes, ma'am.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.